Hello class. Today Mrs. Taylor is out and Twister Girl has arrived. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why? Why is this happening? Well, I will tell you. Because me as Twister Girl, we're doing one of my favorite lessons, 5.1 Parallel Lines and Angle Relationships. Here's the deal. In Twister, I see so many parallel lines. I see so many transversals, so many different angles made with people's arms crossing each other and legs and all sorts of things. So that is why I, Twister Girl, will be doing your lesson today. So there's a lot of definitions in this lesson, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first one is called a transversal, and I just briefly mentioned that. A transversal is a line that crosses two or more other lines. And I'm going to need you to write all of these definitions in your composition book because it's so extremely important that you understand these. So I'm going to draw an example of a transversal. Here are two parallel lines. Remember, parallel lines are two lines that never, ever, ever intersect. So here is my transversal. It's crossing two or more other lines. Okay, that's a transversal. The next definition is vertical angles. These are opposite angles, so they're across from each other, opposite angles, and one extremely important thing you need to know about these are they are congruent. So here's a symbol for congruent, and I'm going to write underneath it, this means congruent. Hopefully you've seen that before, but if not, that's what it looks like, a squiggle and then an equal sign underneath. And so I'm going to label those two are vertical angles. So these two have the exact same measurement. And then these two are also vertical angles. Twister Girl will be back in just a second. I'm going to take a short intermission to erase the board and write some more things. Okay, next we've got two more definitions, interior angles, exterior angles. You can probably guess by the first two letters. Interior angles are the angles that are inside the parallel lines. So I'm going to go ahead and label these with an I. As you can see, these are all inside these two parallel lines right here. Okay, so exterior angles, you got it, are angles that are on the outside of the parallel lines. And I'm going to go ahead and label those with an E for right now. Okay, so these are all exterior. So remember, the interior ones are inside these two parallel lines. Whatever angles are formed outside are exterior. Okay, so the next two definitions are alternate interior and alternate exterior angles. We're just adding another word onto the interior and exterior that we already just learned. So alternate interior angles are still going to be these four angles, but the alternate interior are going to have partners. So first I'll write a definition. They are interior angles that are on opposite sides of the transversal. Huge thing that you need to know about these is they are congruent. make sure you have that right next to alternate interior angles. These are congruent. So they're each going to have a match. So remember, these four are interior. So this is an alternate interior. I'm labeling it with an AI for alternate interior. And this is an alternate interior. So these two purple angles right here are actually congruent. They have the same angle measure. So if this was 70 degrees, this one would also be 70 degrees. It's not, because it's actually greater than 90, but you get the point. So if I come over here and in red, these are also alternate interior and these are also alternate interior. So these two have the same angle measure also. Okay, the next definition, let's do purple. Alternate exterior, you guessed it, they're exterior angles that are on the opposite side of the transversal. So same over here, the only difference is they're exterior. Exterior angles that are on opposite sides of the transversal. Okay, so I'll label those also. These, huge thing, congruent. They're also congruent. Okay, so I'm going to label these with a different color. I'm going to use AE for alternate exterior. So this is an alternate exterior because it's, remember, exterior angles are these four, and across the transversal is this one. So these two angle measures are congruent. So if this was 60 degrees, that's also 60 degrees. And we've got one more pair, alternate exterior. This one's an alternate exterior angle and it matches with this other blue one. So make sure you have this in your notes. If you can use different colors to show that these two are partners and these two are partners, that would be great. Because just remember, these four aren't all alternate. These four aren't all congruent. The greens are congruent and the blues are congruent. This is one of our last definitions. It's called corresponding angles. And corresponding angles are angles that are in the same position and on the same side of the transversal. And these are also congruent. And put a big C there. Okay, make sure you have that definition in your notes. Now I'm going to label one set of corresponding angles on our transversal. There's, I think, 4 pairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, there's 4 pairs. So every angle has the potential to be a corresponding angle since these two lines are parallel. So I'm going to put a C right here because I'm going to do, this is a corresponding angle. So if I look at this, this is in the top left-hand corner of this section. So when I go down to this section, I'm also going to put a C right here. So as you can see, these two are in the exact same position on the same side of the transversal. So these two are corresponding angles. And that means that these two are congruent. So if this was 100 degrees, then this is also 100 degrees. Okay? Just in case you're wondering, I will label one more just for fun. So again, I can do this one. So this is on the bottom right. So the bottom right would be right here. So again, these two have the same angle measurement. They're corresponding angles. I'm going to move out of the way so I can make sure you have this definition and have those labeled. Okay, I have the coolest story ever for you guys. I was playing Twister the other night with my friends, and the coolest thing happened. I saw this. I drew it out just so you could see, since I know you weren't there. But friend number 1, Sam, he went from the red to the blue like this. Okay, and then my other friend, Kristen, went again from the red to the blue just like that. These are their legs, okay? It actually just so happened to make a perfect parallel line. I know it's hard to believe, but trust me. Now, Jake, dear Jake, he was just sitting over here on this blue one, quite sad. But that left me to go all the way from this red all the way to that blue. And yes, it made a perfectly straight line. So I thought, I wonder if my friends know about parallel lines and transversals. You know, it's so important that they need to know. And they told me I should tell my students. So here I am. So I just drew the same picture. Again, these are the 2 parallel lines cut by the transversal. Now, my friends asked me, Mrs. Taylor, are these angles even congruent? We really need to know. And so I'm here to tell you exactly which ones are congruent and which ones are not. So let's start by looking at alternate interior. That was the first set, my marker's up here. That was the first type that we talked about that were congruent. So the alternate interior, remember, are interior angles that are on opposite sides. So in this case, angles 3 and 5 are alternate exterior, and remember these 2 are congruent. So 3 and 5, I'm just labeling these with whatever numbers they are. That way it's easier to write out and see. Then we have also inside and across from each other the 6 and the 4. So angles 6 and 4 are also alternate interior, and that means that they're congruent. Okay, so now let's look at alternate exterior. Alternate exterior, remember, are these 4 exterior angles and then their opposite pair. So angles 1 and 7 are on opposite sides of the transversal. Angles 1 and angle 7. And then we also have 2 and 8. Angle 2 and angle 8. So remember, 1 and 7, they're congruent. 2 and 8, they're congruent. But keep in mind, just in case you missed it, that 7 and 2 are not congruent, because they have to be with their individual pair. Last but not least, we have corresponding. Corresponding, remember, is in the same position on the same side of the transversal. So we're going to have 4 sets of these. We have angle 1 and angle 5. And remember, these are also congruent. And angle 2 and angle 6. And then we have, jump down, angle 4 and angle 8. And last but not least, let's not forget angle 3 and angle 7. Okay, so these are all, this pair is congruent, this pair is congruent, this pair is congruent, and so is that one. Make sure you have that in your composition book. Don't feel the need to make the twister diagram unless you like twister as much as I do. But make sure you have this and these links. Okay, this is my last example, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you now. Surprise, you have no practice problem because this was a very involved lesson, and Twister Girl is very nice. So, I am wondering what the angle of measure 7 is, and what the angle measure of 7 and the angle measure of angle 2, the measure of angle 2. So, I have this diagram, and I am given that measure of angle 1 is 100 degrees. So, using what we know, I need to find out the angle measure of 7. So that's this one. Now, if you notice, angle 1 and angle 7 are alternate exterior angles. So, what we know about alternate exterior angles, we know that they're congruent. So, congruent means they have the same angle measure. So, if angle 1 and angle 7, if angle 1 is 100 degrees, then that means that angle 7 is also 100 degrees. So when I put the M and then this angle sign, that means the measure of angle 7 or the measure of angle 2. Okay, so we know that angle 7 is 100 degrees. So I can write that there. And then we're asked to find what is the measure of angle 2. And I don't think we talked about this, but we'll talk more in depth about it tomorrow in class. But if you notice, angle 1 and angle 2 form a straight line right here. Those two angles together form a straight line. And what we know about straight lines is they have a degree measure of 180 degrees. So if we take 100 and we subtract it from 180, we can find what angle 2 is. So angle 2 is actually 80 degrees. So this is called a supplementary angle. And supplementary angles are angles, when added together, they equal 180. Make sure you write this. Angles, when added together, equal 180 degrees. Okay, so the measure of angle 2 is 80 degrees. Again, we're going to talk more in depth about this tomorrow in class, but I just want to make sure I give you all the definitions that your heart desires. And one last thing, although you don't have a practice problem tonight, I still want you to take a picture of your notes and submit them in Edmodo so that I know you watched the whole video. Thank you.